This is ESBR Boxing. Delighted as always to be joined by Danny. This is a fight preview for the fight on the undercard of Canelo Alvarez versus John Ryder. Oleksandr Gvozdyk versus Ricards Bolotniks. Hope I've pronounced that correctly. Danny, thank you for joining me as always. Intriguing fight, this one. I feel like we like doing these kind of fight previews that have maybe gone under the radar. But yeah, at light heavyweight here, I think Gvozdyk has been out the ring for a while. He had that fight against Beterbiev, retired from the sports, come back, had a comeback fight recently. Obviously won that fight. He's got a record of 18-1. Ricards Bolotniks, we know well here. He's fought Joshua Buatsi, fought Jose Burton, fought Stephen Ward, got a record of 19-6 and 1 draw. Not the best record, but a good fighter. So you're looking forward to this one. Let me know your thoughts on this fight.
Yeah, it's interesting. Definitely an interesting player back at light heavyweight. You touched on Gvozdyk's fight against Beterbiev, and whilst they ultimately got stopped, I think that's still regarded as the toughest fight Beterbiev's had in the professionals. I think a lot of people had Gvozdyk up after 7 or 8 rounds. So 36 now, so you would sort of get the sense that if he was to come back, it would have had to be now if he's to be, a serious contender at the top end of the division. And I remember, I think I can't remember if you sent it to me or sent it to the group chat a couple of months ago that Gvozdyk's fighting this weekend. Was it February the fight was? March maybe. So really took me aback. And then what sort of took me back even more is that after such a long layoff, he's jumping straight I think I would have Bolotniks as probably a fringe top 15, top 20 light heavyweight. And the way he fights, if there is a lot of ring rust or it's not quite there, Gvozdyk will be in for a fight. Bolotnik doesn't take a step back. So you could be forgiving him potentially for maybe having an easier touch and then a Bolotniks and then another step after that. So I think it's the perfect fight to see what Gvozdyk has left.
Yeah, I think Gvozdyk, as you said, 36 years old, came back in February against a guy with a losing record. It was a 6-rounder, didn't won on points, wasn't able to get the stoppage. One thing I did want to discuss with you here is betting odds. Gvozdyk, I'm looking at Sky Bet now. He's 1-8 to win. Bolotniks is 13-2. Do you think, considering Bolotniks has been more active the last 4 or 5 years, how long Gvozdyk was out of the ring for? Bolotniks has been up against good opposition. Yeah, just your thoughts on that. Just kind of are those odds too wide for you?
You said what Gvozdyk was 1-8 and Bolotniks 13-2.
Yeah.
I think if you're looking from a pure value perspective, you've got to be saying it's with Bolotniks in that case, just purely because you don't know what Gvozdyk has left. As you say, the fight in February was more just get a run out against the fighter who he could probably still beat at 50, if we're being real. Whereas Bolotniks will not be that. Very tough, very strong. He'll get stopped by Buatsi very late. It was obviously meant to fight Craig Richards. I think the rumblings are the fight got cancelled a couple of times. I think Bolotniks' team got the impression that they didn't really want this fight. So yeah, it's interesting. I didn't think Gvozdyk would be that wide a favourite. Obviously, the version of Gvozdyk that fought Beterbiev and beat Adonis Stevenson, that you can understand being that sort of price. But at 36, I know there were sort of rumours that he had maybe had that prolonged break because of effects of the Beterbiev fight. I read somewhere about a potential brain injury. One thing I would say, he's obviously, kept himself in decent nick if he's able to come straight back in at light heavyweight, and not have straight up at cruiserweight. So that's maybe an indicator of where he's at, but that's definitely some interesting odds.
Yeah, definitely. I think Gvozdyk is October 2019. He had that Serbia fight, so over 3.5 years ago. It's a long time. It's one thing being out the ring for 18 months, 2 years. 3.5 years is a long time. And I think those odds are a bit too wide. And at the age of 36 as well, it's hard coming back then. The fight he had a couple of months ago, it was, you can call it a fight if you want to, but really it was just kind of maybe just dusting off the cobwebs. If you consider Gvozdyk kind of was a world level fighter, he's come back against a guy with a losing record. Not that it's not going to be the most competitive fight you're going to see. So yeah, really, really, really intriguing one. Two more questions, Danny. I think I'll ask for your prediction first. Do you think Gvozdyk's going to come back and win on the weekend?
You would have to think so. Like, again, it all comes down to what's left. But I was watching another sort of video discussing his comeback, and by all accounts, he doesn't need the box for the money, which should be an indicator that maybe there's not a lot left there. So he obviously thinks he's got enough in the tank. As I said, the fight being at light heavyweight, he's obviously, he's kept himself in relative good shape. And whilst we've, been praising aspects of Bolotniks games, like he's limited, in terms of technical boxing ability, there'll be pretty wide gap here. But I think it's more a question of how he looks winning. I mean, stopping Bolotniks at any stage would be a huge statement. Even a wide points win would be a pretty good indicator that he's still, capable of competing at light heavyweight. So I think you do have to favour him to get it done, just maybe not as a 1-8 shot.
Yeah, we shall see. I think Gvozdyk. My final question is: I think with the light heavyweight division, Beterbiev's not going to be around too much longer. Bivol, you think is going to stay. You think is going to stay at light heavyweights. That kind of leaves room for someone else to maybe be a world champion in the next year or so. I think obviously there's Callum Smith, Buatsi in this country. Can you envisage Gvozdyk being a world champion in the next 12 to 18 months?
I'm just not sure people are going to be dying to fight him. You know what I mean? He's not a big name. They'll all saw the Beterbiev fight, the Stevenson fight, as it says, and he'll probably have to force himself into a mandatory position. So I don't know. I seen the thing with the WBC basically saying that they wouldn't sanction any Dmitry Bivol fight, which would sort of rule out undisputed. So it depends whether Beterbiev wants to keep hold of his belts or vacates one or two. I'm not sure which situation would actually be better. For Gvozdyk, I suppose we'll know more because I imagine he'll pick up a ranking after this Bolotniks fight if he wins. I've not actually checked to see if he has in at the minute. So I think he's going to have to force himself into a mandatory or certainly a well ranked because he's not a fighter you'd be queuing up to fight like financially, stylistically. So, and at 36, it would need to be within the next year, 18 months, you would imagine.
Yeah. Think so. I think time is ticking. But yeah, interested to see what Gvozdyk has left. A good fight, obviously, kind of something to keep British fight fans awake during kind of the early hours of Sunday morning. Oleksandr Gvozdyk versus Ricards Bolotniks at light heavyweight. Yeah, we will see what happens. Danny, thank you very much for joining me. We'll speak to you again soon.
No problem, mate. Thanks.